So the hero that I'm most interested coming in of Outsiders is Uzuri. I think she's very interesting, and I think she has some potential. That said, I get why people might disagree. Mathematically, she's at best on rate, and given her stealth restrictions, she's probably actually below rate. So tonight, I'm explaining why I believe that her efficiency isn't her resource curve or even her card pool, but rather her ability to force extra cards or land detrimental on hits. Then I'll give my take on where she stands out of the gate, and why I acquiesce she might not actually be there yet. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, fat folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Andrew with you here as always, and tonight I am defending my position on Uzuri's efficiency. And as I mentioned, it's not necessarily resource efficiency, but I do think she is card trade efficient, which I think gives her a lot of potential. But I do have to acquiesce after playing around with her, at least with the current card pool and the number of on hits that are available, or number of decent on hits available for her. I don't know that she's there yet, but it's not going to stop me from continuing to try and make her work. Now, I do have no script tonight, but I do have some notes. You'll see me popping around on that. But let's go ahead and get right into the discussion. After, of course, I do mention that, yes, that's right, pre-orders are up at Gongai Games, and we're doing a really cool thing this set around. If you pre-order a case from them, you get free entry into their armory events for the seasons. And what that season is defined as is the drop of Outsiders until the drop of the next set, which will be Dusk Till Dawn. Now, there's a couple caveats of that, and in order to understand why it's a good deal, you have to understand the way we do it. At Gongai, it's a $10 entry, and you get 2 packs out of the gate. That is your armory entry, and then we do armory pricing. That's the way we do it. If you are using this deal, you will get free entry and no packs, right, for the duration. And for those crafty kids who've already asked, no, it does not include free drafts, right? When we do drafts, you still have to do the draft thing. All right, easy peasy. But yeah, if you're local to Portland, it's a pretty good deal. Something you were going to buy anyway. Use Commando 10 for your discount. It's a good deal. All right, so Uzuri, right? So we all know what she does at this point. She's got the switcheroo. And when I was talking about her on the day she was spoiled, right, headed into spoiler season, my thumbnail said she was efficient. And Archer, right? Archer, someone who I really respect. He's one of the better players in the Portland area. He said, hey, you didn't really talk about how she was efficient. He's like, I actually think she's inefficient. And I don't think he's wrong from a resource standpoint, right? I mean, it's very easy when you first read her to be like, oh, wow, you get to play a 2-drop for free. Well, you don't really, because the stealth card was effectively a pitch card and all that. And she's actually not card efficient for that very reason. You still have to basically have, if you think about it this way, right? She's throwing out a 2-6 or maybe a 2-7 if it's something like, what's the attack reaction one? It's sneak attack, right? If you throw out a sneak attack, it's 2 cards, 1 permanent for 7, right? Well, that's on rate with what any hero can do with Wounded Bull or cards like that, right? So no, she's not even really card efficient in terms of doing what she wants to do. But I do think the efficiency in what I meant is that she's card trade efficient. And what I mean by that is, let's say you throw out a blue 0-1 with stealth. Your opponent has to make hard decisions, right? Do they overblock? Do they trade you the good cards, or do they take the damage? And that's where I think the next step of her comes is dealing the damage isn't going to be enough. You're going to have to land an on-hit. And I think that's the problem she faces overall is, are there really enough on hits to make her effective, right? So Uzuri's efficiency doesn't, like I said, it doesn't lie in her resource curve or even her card pool. And in fact, her card pool is not great because she has to rely on the stealth, which by and large, they're below rate, right? They're 0 for 3s. Some of them do cool things like the dominate and all that. But her value then is all very clearly on her hits or the card trade efficiency, right? You either you give me more cards than I give you, or you're going to take damage and an on hit, right? Now, she also has the cool thing of if she has more cards, remember she's got those daggers, that, well, you can choose the right dagger for the right deck. But for a blue pitch, you can dagger, you can do a stealth swap, and then you could pummel, that if it's a 2, obviously, with either a tunic or with the red back, which is another problem because of the whole silver generation. But it is there, but that's a 4-card hand because that's a blue pitch, let's do that, a blue pitch, a stealth card, a 2-drop, and a pummel. And sure, one of those except the 2 that you're swapping in could be from Arsenal. And I do think that is what I know I'm going back and forth here, but I do think that's one of the things that I've really run up into for her challenge is that if they do overblock, right? So let's say you drop that 0-1, they overblock, they give you 2 cards, you gave them 1, great trade. You still have the 2 in your hand, you tuck it in your arsenal. It's a little harder to get that out than it should be, I think. So she's going to have some arsenal swap type stuff, okay? So, yeah. Now, to that end, I know there's been some discussion about doing some cool tricks with her. Ravenous Rabble, right, is the one that comes to mind because it doesn't have the on-play effects, right? So there's Ravenous Rabble, there's Gore Belching, there's kind of some other cool stuff around that. But Ravenous Rabble, I think it's not good. I'm going to say it bad, but I think it's not good with her. It's cute, but it's a 5 go again, but it doesn't solve her card problem overall, right? And it also doesn't deliver an on-hit, right? So let's just kind of go into some of my notes here. Right? CNC is the obvious. I mean, it's the poster child for what she's doing, right? You're going to stealth, do this no dominate stealth into Command and Conquer. That's the poster child for it. Great. You get to do the thing. Do note that putting the card in is part of the cost, so it does disrupt the whole attack, or I should say in this case, defense reaction order, which is pretty neat there, but you still have to be aware of the ordering on that, right, for CNC and the D-reacts. We also have, kind of an oldie but a goodie, Pursuit of Knowledge, and then, of course, the soon-to-be reprinted and diving in price, Take That, Speculators, Surgical Extraction, right, stuff like that's very good, and then that'll help a little bit with the silver generation, but only a little bit. So that's one thing that is interesting. But what I'm really going for here is getting in the hand or somehow applying detrimental effects or extra damage effects, right? So to that end, we have Death Touch, right? Being able to swap that in. Yes, that's only a 1, but being able to swap that in and land an on-hit and then make them basically pay. I mean, in most cases, they're going to take 2 more, I would think, in CC. So that's not bad. 1 for 8, effectively. And then Shakedown also can get in there. Now, what's really cool about the 2 I just mentioned, Shakedown and Death Touch, is they're assassin cards. So your shreds are still on. And you also have the possibility of letting something like a Toxicity. But do note with Toxicity is the next you play, so it won't really work with the switcheroo. You'd actually have to just play that. So Toxicity, I think you can play like a blue Toxicity or something, and then that helps you if for whatever reason you had to put that card in Arsenal. I think Toxicity is kind of your, maybe a little bit of bailout there. I already mentioned Gore Belching. I mean, swinging for 7's good, but again, it doesn't have an on-hit, so it's effectively the same. In fact, some cases it's worse than like a Wounded Bull, right? So again, the thing's cute because you get a 7, but it's not really helping you live. And again, is that really above rate game plan? I guess you're blocking 2 and swinging 7 for 1 permanent. It's fine, but I just don't think it's good enough. Now, some of the interesting cards, right? Wreak Havoc is interesting, right? The Poor Man CNC. It's a little limiting in what it does, probably with her switcheroo ability, but it's there. But Humble is really interesting to me, and Erase Face, right? Both of those very much in the same bucket as well, kind of disrupting their plan. And so, I've kind of run down the relevant cards that she can use, and I think that's maybe part of the problem, or, kind of going into the negatives that I haven't touched on already. I think that's maybe part of the problem is I didn't realize how limiting, there's not that many of the like generic 2/6s, or even in this case, the Assassin 2/6s that have significant on hits, right? So in doing the theory crafting on how many you'd really want to run, I think it's like 15 to 18 is probably what you want to run of them. And there's an argument that it might be like 21, right? Almost treat it kind of like a pitch card, because your stealth cards, well, actually the stealth cards are the ones you're going to treat like a pitch, right? Because the stealth cards are non-consumable, if that makes sense, right? So, kind of like how you treat blue pitch cards, where like you keep pitching blue and your deck becomes more blue. Well, as you keep burying your stealth cards, in this case, you're going to have more and more stealth cards. Now, granted, it's a 0-3, and you can still do some cute stuff like, maybe you do spike with blood rot or stuff like that. It's still cute to be able to drive the on hits, but I don't think it's necessarily going to get you. I don't think it's going to win you the race, I think is the fair way to say. And then I think maybe the last thing we can talk about, right, is I'm a little concerned about her inability to make silver for the equipment. Now, the mask is not that big a deal, but I think if you don't have a tunic, I think running redback to try and do the pummel trick that I talked about earlier, right? Blue into pummel, blue into switcheroo into pummel, giving the extra one, I think that's really, really cool. I also think redback's can be something people like to play, but if you're not recurring it, I think you just want tunic. So, can she really run? I've heard people out there argue, was like, well, what about the big three of the old assassin cards from Dynasty, right? Talking No Witnesses, Eradicate, and then Surgical, obviously. Those are good to swap in, but man, swapping a stealth card for a 0-4 on a 2-card hand? I don't know, right? And especially because those old ones don't have stealth, so you can't use the new attack reacts for stealth. So I don't know. That's very... I don't know about that. And I do think the ability to not have silver, I think the ability to not have silver available to her is weird. And, it is kind of weird in this set that Dynasty Assassin was released. It felt not like a full package, right? Because it was setting the stage. But I question how much, outside of cards like Shred, I do question how much it actually did set the stage, because it kind of feels like we have two very different buckets we have the contract play and the stealth play. They don't seem like they gel very well, because cards like Cut to the Chase, they're not interchangeable. So aside from Shred and maybe like Surgical, I'm not sure what overlap there is. So anyway, we will have to see what the smart kids can do. I want to be very clear. I'm just trying to acknowledge both sides here. I'm very excited about trying to get her to work. I think if I can figure out how to deliver enough on hits to basically I think she's going to end up playing like an Ice Lexi to a certain extent, right? Where you're trying to just stick and disrupt and use that disruption essentially as you're blocking. Except she's going to be able to block a couple cards too. But she's got some really cool plays, right? To be able to throw out a CO3 stealth when they block, you can shred and then still come over top. I like that, but that's a 3-card hand. Does the math on that work out? Sure, it's still damage. But I think a lot of times if you're doing that, you're probably not sticking them with the dagger. And I think the dagger's pretty efficient it's not efficient, but it's good for what it does when you're trying to force them to block, right? And if they know you're playing a whole bunch of on hits, they're going to be doing that card trade thing, and then what happens if you jam up your arsenal? So it'd be very interesting to me to see what the smart kids end up doing to solve that problem. And because I have not solved it yet, but I'm very interested. Let me know below what y'all are thinking for solving that problem. So all of the problems, right? Which on hits are you looking for? Command and Conquer, it's only 3 Command and Conquers. It's not going to get it done. And, a lot of people don't have Command and Conquers too. So I do think it's a very interesting problem to be solved. But again, I think she's got some potential. She definitely can trade cards well. But if you're playing her as a fatigue, other people can just do it better, right? So I think she's kind of in that weird spot where she kind of plays like a nice Lexi, probably can defend a little better, but probably doesn't stick as hard. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see, but we'll never back down from a challenge, right? So again, let me know. Again, you can very truly tell there was no script. I was kind of thinking out loud. This was more for, to answer Archer's thing on why I thought that, and then to kind of also acquiesce, say, hey, in the 10 days since, I've learned things, and kind of wrap that up. And speaking of wrapping it up, let's wrap it up. So thanks everyone for joining. If nothing else, go Commando.